Hello, Chris.
Hello, Abby.
How are you? Are you good? Are your jet lag's gone? You got back a bit
Jet
before
lag. I've
me.
been back for 2 weeks now. Jet lag's well and truly gone. Got the kids home, doing school holidays, so trying to manage the balance between getting work done and managing screen time and feeding them and all the fun stuff, but that every parent who works from home is dealing with at the moment. But it's good times.
So let's talk America because it was very, very good. I was thinking about it as I was flying back, and I thought it can be. Oh, do we have time to go? Oh, it's a long way to go. But then you get there and you just remember why it's important. It's just so inspiring, and it's so great to be connected. And the people we met were fantastic. So how about we just have a riff sesh on some of the big learnings we had?
I love it. I love it. I had such a good time over there. I love America much. I lived there for a long time. I think I get back there pretty regularly these days. But despite what's going on in the politics over there at the moment, which I think as people who live on the other side of the world, we kind of see what is going on, and we have a bit of empathy for the people who are dealing with all of that. It's a great country, and it's incredibly diverse, and the scale and the scope and the kind of the interest, and there's just so much cool stuff going on over there. So I love going over there and learning and bringing back lessons about what big businesses are doing and how they're thinking about things for our community over here.
And this year it was really exciting because we not only were listening, but we were sharing. So we will chat about that. But we were actually on stage in a couple of different forms, sharing what, APAC's doing. And it was really incredible to represent the fantastic APAC community and all of the people doing fantastic things down here.
It's a real privilege to be able to share some of the stuff that we're doing on a global scale. The work we're doing here in APAC and in particular in Australia is globally relevant and in some regards globally leading. So that's pretty awesome to be able to share that and get all the kind of the feedback and the wows and that's amazing what you guys are doing sort of feedback that we got. We often look at the States and think they're 5 or 10 years ahead of us, but these days we're catching up pretty fast. So that's awesome.
This is my wee proud mum moment where I get to gush about you. My co-host Chris with his keynote with Tom Opie from Treasury. It was the first session of the conference and they just opened with a bang. It was so fantastic. And by the end of it, they were kind of like rock stars. People kept coming up and saying, that was great, tell me more. And in New York, it was me, you up on stage with Avadia from Stella Artois. When I am up on stage, I'm a little bit like a horse bolting. My eyes shut and my ears pinned back and I have no idea how we went. But people seem to really respond to that too. So, good times.
Awesome. Well done for making all that happen. You really pulled an amazing trip over and we learned a lot.
It's my pleasure, and it couldn't happen without people who are really willing to collaborate. Like the team at Henry Stewart Creative Ops, they were just so welcoming and they always want to get us involved. And then our really, truly lovely friends at A&A, I think we bonded with them more this time than ever before because they're just doing great stuff. And it's such a huge organization with such a breadth of brands and buying power and just like creativity. And it was just... really fun to hang out with them. So big props to both of those organizations.
It was great that they were open to having some global perspectives up on the stage, and we love having the opportunity to represent our community here.
So let's talk creative ops first. We went to New York and we couldn't have been there at a cooler time. The World Cup, Puerto Rico Day Parade, the New York Knicks had just won. So it was an absolute fizzing city. That vibe carried on into the conference because they kicked off with like something that you and I are absolute fanboy and girled over, the NASA presentation.
How good was that? This creative ops conference where the best creative operations people in the world get together to talk and learn from each other. And they kicked it off with NASA. And, we've all seen NASA as a, space kind of fanboy from way back, watched lots of NASA launches, but you haven't heard that much from NASA these days. You hear a lot from Elon Musk's, SpaceX, and you hear Jeff Bezos is shooting rockets into space, and there's a lot more private stuff going on, but NASA's still there doing stuff. And they had David Rager and Sami Aziz, the global creative director for NASA and the executive producer, get up on stage and tell us this amazing story of how they craft stories that inspire the whole world around space travel. If you paid any attention in the last few months, they just sent a space capsule around the moon for the first time in ages, since the moon landings, I suppose. The Artemis launch, I think it was called. And so they told this whole story about how their job is to bring creativity into this very engineering-focused business and weave creativity and storytelling through the whole organization, because ultimately that's how you get people around the world to connect with what they're doing. And so what an incredible opportunity to work for an organization like that. And they shared this fantastic story. And we were lucky enough to then go and have a beer with them after. And they're awesome guys, right? We kind of made friends with them after, which was cool.
Yeah, it was very fun. And what I loved is it was so inspiring. And you see this incredible storytelling. And it's, all of as a production person myself, it's like all the stuff, the real meaty stuff you want to get your teeth into. And then and with all these production problems that you can't even fathom because space, but then they have the same old. They had no budget to do something, and so they had to bootstrap it. I just love that it's it can be worlds apart from what you're doing in a corporate filming someone on a piece to camera, but same problems exist everywhere. Yep. It was quite uniting.
Yep.
And then the next speaker I remember, which was it was so polar opposites, but I think it talks to a really great piece of, if anybody's ever met me, they hear me talk about remit all the time. It's GSK then went on the stage and they were I got to deliver, my job is, I think I'm going to get the number wrong, but $2,500 per deliverable. That's my target. That's what I'm judged by. Clear, concise. I know my swim lane. It's not about huge creative because we're talking about, healthcare where there's so much stuff you have to put on the screen, and there's rules and regulation, and there's so much stuff going out. And he's it's not my job to think about lunatic ideas. I got to deliver. And he was just it was so interesting because so much of our conversations about moving up the creative funnel, and this guy was so clear. This is my role, and I can smash it out of the park. And I just loved that.
It's about knowing your role, right? That's you just said it, because we heard kind of both sides of that coin, I reckon, when we were over there. We heard a lot of the businesses we heard up on stage were talking about how they report, the in-house agency reports their value to the business in savings, right? Here's how much money we saved you, and that's exactly what you were talking about. The GSK fellow talked about, I can produce assets for $1,500 or whatever the number that was that he said, and that's this much better than your agencies used to be able to produce them, right? So he's all about, I'm just cheaper. I can get the work out, it's good enough, and it's cheaper. And so that was one actually really strong message on one side of the coin. And then you had this other side of the coin where a lot of people were talking about, we have to move away from being about cost savings and efficiency and move up the value chain to become a strategic partner and driving creativity and effectiveness and actually driving growth. And, the presentation that you mentioned that Tom and I gave about Splash and how the journey that they've been on in Australia for Treasury Wines, that was all about going from becoming a sort of production studio to a growth partner for the business and actually bringing creativity to every element of the business. So it was kind of two sides of the coin, and both valid, right? You can be efficient and cost savings and be good and deliver high quality work that moves the needle and drives growth as well at the same time. And actually that's probably where the magic is, in being able to find a way to do both those things.
Yeah. And it was funny because then Target came on, and I thought they were going to be really about cheap. And they weren't cheap. One of her first slides was cheap is the wrong target, which I love because play on target. But they were their whole talk was about moving from production to content generators. And I think what was nice about this is they really sung the praises of creative ops and, about how that is the engine that brings all these strategies to life. And it's so funny, they had the call to action, which I wrote it down and I'm want to stamp it on people's foreheads, which was make the implicit explicit, understand your brand, map your process, and then scale. And I was that is so cool. It's so intentional. And I was they're making the implicit explicit because we're so often, when you're doing all this good work, you just get on with it. And it's no, you need to be your own PR agent. And then there was a guy at A&A who's literally a PR agent for marketing people. And he was get out there and sell your story and tell people what you're doing. Because if it becomes too same old, then people start to forget the value. And it's that's when you get into murky waters and people are being oh, what are you actually doing? It's I'm still saving you $3 million a year. Don't forget. So you can't let people forget. Yeah, it was really fascinating.
Yeah, there was a whole presentation at the ANA conference about reporting on savings, wasn't there? I think the guy from Fiserv was the name of the business, but he got up and spent half an hour telling us about kind of how he basically reports on savings as the key metric for his business. So there was, like I said, there was kind of a lot of that, but there was also a lot of people kind of going, we got to move on from that and
Yeah.
get into how we're actually driving growth. So it's really about the role. It's about, if you know your role is, I'm there to provide low cost, fast turnaround productions capability for the business, great, report on savings. If I'm there to drive growth and creativity and innovation for the business, then find a way to report on that as well.
Yeah. Because even the guy from Fiserv was like, I started out as cost, but now he's like, I report every month on something that's not cost, like some things that are non-cost related, like the things like, this is how many shoots we did. This is a cost avoidance. This is how it moved the needle for a brand that was, like it was really interesting to see, like it should not, your reporting should not just be numbers and data. It should be a story as well.
There's something quite insightful about that too, right? Which was, whatever you're reporting on, and this is for our friends all around the world who run these in-house teams, you can be really busy and you can feel like, I've got a million things going on, but if you're not telling people about it, they don't know. They just hear you going, I'm so busy all the time. So if you can constantly report on, hey, listen, last month we received 47 briefs and we produced 1,000 assets and we did it at this sort of turnaround time and this level of first rounds of feedback, or whatever the kind of metrics that you're reporting on are. There's something powerful in just being able to show the business and your stakeholders, look at how much we're doing here. And look at, when we say we're busy and we're having to prioritize this over that, there's a reason for that. So yeah, there was definitely a discipline, consistent discipline of tracking, measuring, and reporting what you're doing over there, whether it's cost or growth or
whatever,
clicks or whatever it might be. Yep.
And I think that's the reminder we have to give ourselves as well, is it feels hard, but it doesn't have to be. If you set up your software well enough and your processes well enough, that should just track itself, it should just be a case of pulling it out. So it's that upfront work to get the out, like the constant reporting, which makes life easier.
Yep.
And last one for me on creative ops, and then I will let you take the lead for A&A because I have talked a lot, but creative ops is my squishy. Like, let's be real. I love this conference, but it was the AI conversation came up a lot. And it was quite interesting because it was people really in it. And obviously Wes from Monks got up and did an incredible talk about what was possible when you actually put some people and focus behind it. And I think that was really inspiring for me, being like, hey, too often in-house, we just think of AI as something you should bolt on the side of your other job. And it's like, you need people that focus on it. If you put focus to it, it's so incredible what's possible. But that is something that external agencies and tech companies and things like that are so much better at than in-house, is ring fencing someone to do it and focusing on it. And so that was my takeaway from Wes. But then I had a session from Screen Dragon, who were one of the sponsors, and it was so good because it was about like AI experiments everywhere, but operational impact isn't. We're seeing so much happening, but where's the outputs? And it was like, because it's everywhere, but it's happening in the wrong place. And it's like standalone tools and agents to speed up individual tasks like copy and assets, but individuals get faster, but the system doesn't. And then in some case that makes the individuals faster, leading to more bottlenecks. And I was like, I hadn't thought about it that way. And so he was really talking about the operational harness is the unlock, like the thing in the middle, the process of the AI is the thing that unlocks the real wins. And I was like, we've got to stop. Like experimentation is great because it's got people over the scary, like, of it all, and people are starting to enjoy it. But now is the time to like, okay, what's this hub we can put in the middle so that we can, put dip tools in and out? Like, how can we basically our AI orchestration? What does that look like?
Yep,
it was really
orchestration.
exciting.
Orchestration was a popular word over there. You're right. And for sure, I think it was interesting how the creative ops people were talking about AI, which was a little bit different to the we had probably more in-house agency leaders and creatives at the A&A conference. It was almost two different sort of tones on how the AI could impact. And so one of them in the ops, it was very much like, just get it in, put it in, be efficient, be fast, use it as much as you can. And don't worry about what the impact of it is on your business or the processes. Although definitely a lot of people were saying, you've got to redesign your processes and your operations around it. I found at the ANA conference where there was a slightly different demographic of people, that there was probably a little bit more hesitation isn't the right word, but being careful with it, I think, was probably more tonally. It was more like we had a presentation from a lawyer, an IP lawyer, who got up and she presented these incredible slides full of words. It was 10-point font on these huge slides that you could barely read, but there was so much content on there. Everyone took lots of pictures of them, and it was all about, how do you manage risk and governance and privacy, and how do you not allow the AI to cause your business to make claims that aren't valid and get yourselves in trouble. And she even showed an example of a business like a real estate agent who had done that, where the real estate agent had relied on the AI to write copy for this house listing, and the AI had written something like, it's in the school, it's in the catchment for this school, and the school doesn't even exist, and no one checked it. No one, went back and copy checked it. So it just went out, and they're getting in all sorts of trouble now because they're doing false advertising. So that was fascinating. And I think there's these two camps in AI, right? I think that's probably one of the thoughts is there's a camp of like, just get it, shove it in there and see how fast you can go. And then there's another camp of like, but what does it mean for our people? And what does it mean for creativity? And how do you actually raise the level of creativity when everyone's using the same tools, everyone's putting the same brief into, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot, you kind of get the same stuff. And I think most people now can start to recognize there's patterns in the way that AI will write and communicate. And you can start to see, I think this has got a bit of AI in it, right? And I'm okay with that broadly, because everyone should be using it in some way. And, if you're using it to write emails and bits and pieces, cool. But if you're using it to write copy that's going to go out in front of consumers, and you're not checking on it and making sure that it sounds well written and there's not mistakes in it and it's in the tone of voice of the brand, you're probably making a mistake. So there's two camps here. I don't know if that...
And I think that actually speaks to the way that this has all come about, because for the last 2 years, we've had C-suite people or people quite senior saying to operations people, just AI something. And so they've been hurrying to just, as you say, get it going and get it operational. And because that's their role and that's their life and KPI. They're like, I want to get this thing going. And now we're starting to see the people going, actually, let's ask some sort of questions about it. We don't have governance. We don't have a strategy. We don't have a plan. And this is just a bit higgledy-piggledy. And so I think now's the real time to maybe those two rooms should sit together, and like maybe the operas people should say, well, this is my learnings from having operationalized it. Let me help you build that into a strategy with your key considerations and people thoughts and creativity and all of those bigger strategic things, and work together to actually do a plan. Like let's do this sensibly. But yeah, I think we're at a really interesting point with AI. The scare's gone, not gone, but abating, and then there's the experimentation has happened. The tools have caught up a bit with they're actually the Will Smith eating spaghetti is you've seen the is the
pretty
scale
good now.
of AI.
I don't think you can tell now. So yeah.
No, and I think so. And people are a bit more ready. So now it's going to be a really interesting 6 months, year from here to see what happens when you actually start to be a bit more driven and mindful, and what are we actually going to do.
Those two camps, you mentioned Wesley Terhar from Monks.
Yeah, so good.
And he got up and talked about a lot of AI thinking that he's applied inside his own business as opposed to with his client partners. But he said a word that has stuck with me, right? He said anxiety, right? Anxiety is a new word. I don't know where it came from, but it's a combination of excitement and anxiety. Yeah. And that's those two camps, right? That's exactly those two camps. It's like there's these people who are super pumped and excited and all in on AI, and they're running fast. And then there's these people who are like, wait, what does it mean for me and my job? Or what does it mean for our business and security and privacy and safety? Like there's both of those things. And actually, as much as I'm saying there's two camps, those two things probably exist in everyone, right? In some way, shape or form. You might lean a little bit one way or the other, but I for sure I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit like, oh shit, we've got to be careful here. You know, what does it mean for the jobs my kids will be able to do in 10 or 15 years' time? So those kind of questions. So that was a nice one that stuck with me.
And overwhelmingly, the ANA, I've just felt a lot of optimism in the room. Like it felt like, and they'd just done their AI, the resilience of not AI, the resilience of in-housing report, and it was just really positive data. Like it was really like, even the one that I think was like 9% of people see cost saving as the main reason for doing it. It's like, oh wow, that is no longer the main reason people are in-housing. They're like, speed to market's important, brand knowledge, brand governance, all these other things. So it was I felt a real sense of positivity and optimism in the room, and everyone was just like, this thing is kicking goals, and it's on to the next stage.
That was interesting, the stat you just said, right? So if we come back to the conversation we started with, which was like people reporting on cost savings, but the ANA did their own research, right, on sort of the role of in-house agencies, and I think that they were saying that the number of people who choose cost savings as the primary benefit of in-housing has gone down to only 9%, right? And I think most people, certainly in the markets where it's still an emerging trend, they think, oh, this is all about saving money. But that when they mature, when the in-house agencies mature and the savings are baked into the baseline, the benefits start to show up in terms of knowledge of the brand and knowledge of the business and ability to be agile and creativity and innovation, all the other things, right? So, cost savings it's a point in time comparison between, what I used to pay my agency with what I can do it for myself now. But eventually the benefits start to show up in all these other ways, which is really, really interesting. And that's where we're heading in Australia.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if it was Walmart that was like, you've got to be really careful about just turning cost savings into, cost givebacks, and where you should be actually reinvesting. And I think even Warren from Copper Giants was like, we try and reinvest money so that we are, working like a training hospital where we have time to make the next generation of people. And, they don't hire super juniors, but they're always like, we should be working on doing something that's new all the time and leaving space for that. So there was a few conversations around like, don't just like, if CMOs can, I mean, savings is always a huge part of why you in-house, but if you can try and treat some of the savings as a reinvestment in the machine will do better work for you. And I mean, an AI is a great place to use that reinvestment, but there was a couple of conversations around that.
It was awesome. The whole trip was awesome. We're going to do a bit of a longer recap for our iHack members next week, but it was a fantastic trip. Thanks again for organising it, Abby. You did a great job, and we finished it with some fun, right? What were the highlights? What were the highlights for you that we kind of finished up with?
Well, Chris allowed me to plan a wee afternoon out for us, and I chose to take us to the Australia-Paraguay soccer match in San Jose in San Francisco. And it was like, I'm not a massive soccer fan, don't get me wrong, but I am a big believer in, like, I love big tournaments. I love the World Cups. I love all of the things that bring people together because it's a fizz, and there's something, especially in today's slightly divided world, there's something really nice about people just hanging out together and having a good time and just enjoying sport. And so we were there, and it was just magic. Like, America is a fantastic place when it comes to sport. They know how to sport. They sport real good, and their stadiums are incredible. But it's so funny because we went out to San Jose, and it's like an hour and a half from San Fran, and me and Chris are on this train, and we're like, and then every stop, some more Aussies get on, and some more Aussies got on. And I had a big flag. I mean, obviously I'm a Kiwi, but I live in Australia, so I was supporting the right side. But yeah, and then we got off the train in time for the Australian march to the stadium, and all the Australian fans meet at this one spot, and they just hoon down to the stadium.
That
and
was fun.
I say hoon, it was the slowest walk ever because there was so many of us, but chanting and singing, and it was magical. And Chris and I, I'm glad nobody else that we knew saw us because we were like kids at like kids.
It was pretty fun.
It was great.
And we got to go, all the talk for the week leading up, all the talk had been about the Levi's Stadium and how clever Levi's had been by wrapping up their logo in a way that you could recognize it. And we got to stand right in front of that logo, didn't we? That was cool.
Yeah. It was, and, I mean, yes, Chris, you're right. We did do some brand related homework while we were there. It wasn't all fun.
And what about the dinner? I thought you were going to mention the dinner. That was
Well,
probably my highlight.
I was leaving you to plan to finish
The
on the
dinner
dinner
was so fun. So,
the dinner was your
the
baby,
big
and it was
highlight,
so
we
good.
had some amazing experiences. We made a bunch of new friends, but one of the things that we loved doing, we mentioned the guys from NASA that we met at the beginning of the trip in New York, and it turns out they both live in California. So when we were at the ANA event in California, we reached out. They said, "Hey, let's hang out when you're in town." So we reached out, and I've got an old friend who's the VP of Creative for Liquid Death, a guy named Andy Pearson. And then we had Tom Opie from Treasury Wines with us as well. He had come over to present on stage. So we went off and had the most random but amazing dinner of collection of creative legends of all time. So we had the global creative director and EP from NASA. We had the VP of creative for Liquid Death, and we had the global head of creative for Treasury Wines, all sitting around a dinner table, just having a couple of cocktails and having some nice food and talking about creativity, which was just so fun. Like, it was a real pinch me moment. So that was pretty awesome too.
I remember at one point just saying to Sammy, who's does the production for NASA, I was like, if there's ever a time I can come on a shoot, I don't care when it is, I don't care where it is, I will fly there. Because that, as a producer, like, I grew up making films, and my favorite was remote location filming, like me and a couple of peeps with a camera and a mic, like in sub-Saharan Africa, just making it work. Like, that's my vibe. And it was definitely a real pinch me moment. And then we found out we were across the road from the Always Sunny in Philadelphia bar location. So
that's
I went and
right.
took a photo.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You went and got a photo, didn't you?
I did. But yeah, it was very cool. Tip my hat to you, Chris, because you're never afraid to say, come on, let's have a beer or a meal and just watch people get to know each other.
If you see a Liquid Death can on a space mission at some point in the next couple of years, you know where that idea came from. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, that was awesome. Thanks again. We're looking forward to sharing this with all of our iHack members soon.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, that's it. And we will speak to you shortly.
Bye.